Good morning. If you missed class on Wednesday or Thursday this week of January 5th or 6th and 7th, section 4.2, we were working on graphing quadratic functions that were in standard form. So if you look at this first example here, we see we have an equation that is y equals x squared plus 2x plus 3. That is in standard form. The first step you need to do is find your vertex like we do normally. The only issue here is that we need to figure out how to find it using the coefficients. So we're first going to identify our a, which is in front of our x squared, which is 1. Our b is positive 2, and c is positive 3. The next step that you're going to do is you're going to use this formula to find the x value for the vertex. We have negative b over 2a. So I'm going to do negative, and I'm going to substitute in my b value, which is 2. I'm going to divide it by 2 times our a value, which we said was 1. I'm going to simplify that to negative 2 over 2 times 1 is 2, and that simplifies to negative 1. So my x value for my vertex is going to be negative 1. Alright, the next step is going to be to find your y value. So I'm going to take my original equation of y equals, we have x, so I'm going to replace that x with negative 1 and use parentheses, and it's squared, plus 2 times negative 1 plus 3. Using order of operations, we do the exponent with the parentheses first. Negative 1 squared is the same thing as negative 1 times negative 1, which is positive 1. And then 2 times negative 1 is negative 2 plus 3. So our y value is going to be 1 and 3 is 4 minus 2 is 2. So now I know my y value for my vertex is positive 2. So looking at this, I can plot that point. I'm going to go left 1 and up 2. And now this is where you guys can create a table if you want. We know our vertex is negative 1, 2. So what you can do is choose numbers that are right of it or left. So we can do 0, 1, and 2. Or you can do the other side and do negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. Now, we know 0 is that y-axis, so I can identify my y-intercept by just identifying what c is. So since c is 3, I know my y-intercept is going to be 0, 3. Because remember, 0 is going to get put in for our x values, and those are all going to cancel out, and we'll just be left with positive 3. So if I want, I can plot that point at 0, 3. And then remember, when you're graphing, since this point on the y-axis is only one spot away from the axis of symmetry, I can plot a reflection point on the other side. The next thing, I don't know what my v looks like completely, so I'm just going to use the next number. I'm going to plug in positive 1 since that's next to 0 on my x-axis. So we have y equals 1 squared plus 2 times 1 plus 3. We have y equals 1 squared is 1, plus 2 plus 3, which equals 6. So I know my y value will be 6 when I'm at 1, so I'll go right 1, up 6. And that is 2 places to the right of my axis of symmetry, so I'm going to go 2 places to the left of my axis of symmetry, and I can graph my reflection point. And then once you have enough points, I'm going to connect them all to make my quadratic, which is the U shape, and you are done. The next example is converting standard form to vertex form. So we know our standard form is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So we need to identify a and b and c. So we know a is positive 2, b is positive 10, and c is positive 7. So we're first going to find the vertex. So we need to figure out what the x-coordinate is. The formula is x equals negative b over 2a. So I'm going to plug in. I have a negative sign because that's part of the formula. My b was positive 10 over 2 times my a, and a here is positive 2. So we see here we have negative 10 over 4, which can simplify to negative 2.5. Or you can keep it as an improper fraction, which would be negative 5 over 2. So the next step will be to figure out what the y value is. So it's going to be 2, and then we have negative 5 over 2 squared plus 10 times negative 5 over 2 plus 7. So if you want to use your calculator, you can. We're using order of operations. We have 2 times, we know it, we're going to take the square, so it's negative times negative, so it's actually positive 25 over 4 minus this 5 and 10 divided by 2 is 5, and that's going to be 5 times 5 is minus 25 plus 7. And then if I look here, this 2 and 4 can cancel, simplify to a 2 in the denominator. So we have 25 over 2 minus, if I combine these two numbers, we get negative 18. And we have 25 over 2, which is really 12.5. Subtracts 18 from that, and we get negative 5.5 for my y value. So if you want to write them as decimals, you can. We have a vertex of negative 2.5, comma, negative 5.5. And the last step is we're going to substitute that into our equation here. We have y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. We know our a is that positive 2 up at the top of the equation. So we know y equals 2 times x minus, the x value was negative 2. So that's actually going to change to a plus sign. So it's going to become positive squared and then in the back it's minus 5.5. And that's how you convert it to vertex form. Obviously there's decimals, so there is more we could do, but we're going to stop right there. And that's how you're going to convert your equation to vertex form. If we look at one more example, we have a negative sign in front of our x is asking us to convert this to figure out what, put it in vertex form. So a is negative 1, and we have b is positive 4. So we're going to find our vertex. So the x value coordinate of my vertex is negative b, so it's negative times positive 4 over 2 times a, which was negative 1. So we have negative 4 over 2, and negative 1 is negative 2. And negative 4 divided by negative 2, we get positive 2. So you have to be extra careful with those negative signs. The next step is to plug in. We have y equals negative times positive 2 squared plus 4 times 2 minus 5. Please keep in mind this negative sign is out in front of x, so that has to stay outside of the parentheses, and 2 squared is positive 4. So since I brought that negative sign down, it's actually negative 4. And 4 times 2 is 8 minus 5. When I combine all my numbers, negative 9 plus 8 will be negative 1. So my y value is negative 1. So the last step, we can write our equation. Our a value was negative 1, so I can put a negative sign in front of my parenthesis. H is that 2 that we found for our x value of the vertex, and k is negative 1, so I'll put minus 1 in the back. And that is your equation in vertex form.